Good evening, everyone. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Let me put you on over here. All right, how's it going, everyone? We're going to do Stable Diffusion later on. We really got to get our AI based influencers up and running by end of month. And to do that, because Stable Diffusion is really, really deep, like insanely deep. Um, yeah, we got to get on that. Okay. Um, so came across this video not even an hour ago. It's from Vox. Maybe I should share my screen. Maybe just maybe. And I did watch some of it for disclosure. I was like, let's go ahead and do a reaction video. So we do this, and we do that, and we do that. Okay. All right. And so again, this is from Vox. Always support content creators. The video is titled "AI Can Do Your Homework." Now what? And this goes back to a topic I've been talking about. I'm very passionate about. Of course, AI and machine learning, and also learning in particularly learning by reference. I've been talking about this stuff 8 years, 2015 ish, somewhere around there. And I've always had the position that in the future is memorization is going to be as valued. It's not going to be as valued. Just like if we look back in the past, memorizing things had a lot more value than it does today. And so my position's always been it with tools like search engines and forums, um, um, and now chatbots. You're not going to need to memorize very much. The only reason why we need to do it still need to do it is because of schools and interviews and the old ways of doing things where people just can't adjust, not can't but has not adjusted yet or unwilling to adjust. Right, it's not a problem of technology. Where did smiley face come from? Well, you could add reactions now. That's different. Okay. Shinobi One, how's it going? AI can't type into itself. You have to do the creative thinking. That is incorrect, sir. That is incorrect. Now, if this was a year ago, ChatGPT is a little over um, a year old. I would agree with you, but now we have algorithms where the LLM can train itself with its own data and output. We can't do that now. OpenAI don't do that, and Google don't do that because if y'all remember Tay was when I want to say Tay. Hold on, my phone went off because I said Google. All right, shut up. Okay, if y'all remember Tay, what was Tay? 2016, 17 ish, somewhere around there. Tay went from Tay is from it was an AI from Microsoft, and they put her up on I believe it was Twitter, um, and um, let's just say by end of day one, she went from zero to full out blown racist. And of course, this happened because people were poisoning the well. And also this was during a time where Twitter wasn't as censored. You could pretty much say whatever you want at Twitter at that time. Um, so yeah, your commercial LLMs are not going to have that, but yes, there are algorithms where LLMs can absolutely train itself. Hermes, how's it going? Shinobi One follow us. I can't create anime without typing a single letter. AI ain't publishing its own work. It all requires a person to tell it to do something. Um, I will I will somewhat agree with you, and then we'll get off into the video. I will somewhat agree with you with tools like Auto GPT or Meta GPT. You need, as of today, actually, well, yeah, as of today, you need a human to get the bot started. But we have what the hell? There's a program on GitHub where You can give an LLM control of your entire system and let it run. I don't know why you would ever do that, but it exists. I've got the name of the program. I apologize. Um, so I will agree with you that yes, you need a human to push a start button. But after that, and who knows where we'll be in a year? You're talking about a year. You just had Chat GPT. We know the world thought GPT 3.5 was the greatest thing since sliced bread. No one is even talking about 3.5 anymore. It's 4, and it's about 4, and it's about Gemini, and it's about Bard, and it's about Claude 2.0. 3.5 within a year is gone. It's still useful. And I don't know if OpenAI still has its waiting list. But it's no one is talking about it. So yeah, but once you can program it, once the start button is pushed, it can do whatever at that point. End of day one required people to stay the day. That's true. They took Tay down with the quickness. People could start the job, AI could finish it. Yes, I agree with you on that. All right, let's get started. AI is a perfect student. Depends on how you're defining perfect. If we're talking about perfect scores, then I would ask, what topic are we talking about? Are we talking about mathematics? Are we talking about with the Wolfram Alpha plugin or not? Right? There's so many questions. I don't know. I'll say yes in terms of being able to uh, start and finish tasks, but in terms of getting perfect scores, no. Even today, it's not getting perfect scores. Now, GPT-4, GPT-4 with its training, it can be a medical doctor, it can be a lawyer in any of the 50 states. Um, yeah, it could do that. But yeah. All right. This video is about you know, where are educators going to go from here? Now, we've been asking this question again almost a year now, since GPT 3.5. uh Essentially, my stance has always been, you know uh, LLMs is forcing the uh education the paradigm to shift. You can't have you can't have your education system, maybe not can't you, I guess you can be stubborn, but it'll just people just cheat more. You can't have your education system based on memorization in an age of LLMs and search engines and personal LLMs that can fit on your phone and on the Raspberry Pi. That's just not going to work. Okay. Okay. All right. Let's get started. Let me know if y'all can hear this.
If you were watching the web traffic to ChatGPT since it was released by OpenAI, you would have seen the visits.
Can you all hear that? Want to make sure. Give me a 1, please. Never asked for ones before. I'm asked one. Or 2 if you can't. All right. All right, let's get going.
If you were watching the web traffic to ChatGPT since it was released by OpenAI, you would have seen the visits peak in April and then start dipping down. Some people thought maybe AI-generated text was just a fad after all. But now it seems like maybe that was just summer break.
I was not prepared for the amount of students that were using it.
It felt like a cheat code, right?
About 60% said they use ChatGPT.
91% have at least tried ChatGPT.
It's a high number.
After the headline started that students were using it to cheat, I used it to cheat.
Pieces of writing that are grammatically perfect.
Everything was capitalized correctly.
And if I was in their shoes,
if there was a way that I can do my schoolwork like quickly,
I would have been that kid.
Oh, I would have took it. 100%.
So here's where we're at right now. The American software industry is racing to release and refine AI language models, which I'll call chatbots in this video. It hasn't been obvious to everyone what they should be used for, but it has been obvious to a lot of students. The freely available chatbots can respond to assignments across a bunch of middle and high school subjects. And the most advanced models, which you generally have to pay for, can analyze data, read image files, and right at the college level.
This summer, I did the little research project where I asked my freshman year professors to grade essays written by ChatGPT, and they got all A's and B's. And so this was just like very striking to me.
I wanted to find out what this means for education. So I talked to students from 8th grade to grad school. I talked to teachers and professors and experts in learning. And bear with us because they're right in the middle of this and it's complicated and they don't really agree about.
Here's my first question. Let me get to Shinobi Wan's comment regarding schools cheating and plagiarism. They will need to do repeat live tests regularly, where the room Wi-Fi is canceled. Shinobi, that may work in high school, but you're talking about, are teachers really going to be willing to do that? Like, that eats up so much time. If everyone, if you have to prove, and then, of course, old school cheating, going back to that, are teachers willing to do that? And here's my thing. Here's my conspiracy theory. Is the problem really the tech, or is it the problem is that too many students are succeeding? Too many students are getting A's and B's, because I do not buy that educators care if students actually learn or not. I'm not buying it. I don't think teachers care. I don't think the schools care. I certainly don't think the educational department gives a shit. No, I think too many people are getting too many A's. The success level is too large. We have a problem, right? And no, it's just a thought. I don't have anything to back that up, of course. It's just suspicious that when too many people get A's and B's, it's like, something is amiss here. Live tests will be the rule. Multiple tests with the same questions or similar questions with no phones or tech in the room. If the student keeps writing the same answer, it could be consistent. That'll work. Like I said, that'll work in, grades, I don't know, K through 12. But you talk about college, people in college, that won't work in college. And here's why. People will, if universities start doing that, people will just shift to online classes or online universities. Like, we don't have to deal with this live crap because it's my money. I get to spend it however I want to. I'm not doing that. I'm not getting up out the bed and driving to some brick and mortar school and taking a live test just to satisfy some teacher, professor, department head. I'm not doing that. I'll go to WGU. I'll go to Phoenix University. I'll go to SNHU. I'll go to any of these other thousands, tens of thousands, maybe not tens of thousands, but thousands of online only universities where I don't have to deal with that crap. They're about the same price right about now. School is expensive. Not all schools, but I mean, I guess with WGU, $4,000 every 6 months, it is expensive too, especially if you don't have it. So, yeah, you could, but you're putting a Band-Aid and you're kicking the can down the road. Live test is not solving the problem. You're not addressing the problem of, you need to change the way that you teach, because that's the problem. Teachers are told what to do by state of. I agree with you. I agree. Students have learned that the tech makes their life easier. Yep. All LLMs, all ChatGPT and Claude and Bard and Gemini and Bing, all of it is just an abstraction layer. The problem with LLMs, this particular abstraction layer, which, by the way, our entire lives, everyone's lives, unless you're Amish or Orthodox Jewish or whatever, your life is surrounded by abstraction layers. You didn't build your house, you didn't build your car, you didn't build your water system, you didn't make your clothes, you didn't make your shoes, so on and so on and so forth. Right? The problem with this specific abstraction layer is that it encompasses pretty much everything else. It's not an abstraction layer within a certain domain. It could tell you how to fix your car. It could tell you how to make your clothes if you want to. It could tell you pretty much anything if you could think it up. Not everything, but pretty much everything. Zenobi says the school grades changed from mediocrity to everyone's a loser. I remember when I was in elementary school, an A was from 94 to 100. And then I want to say by the end of high school, that got lowered to 90 to 100. So yeah, it's definitely grade inflation. AI tutors can process if you cheat or not. Yeah, but Shinobi, that can easily be circumvented easily. I've shown how to do that with oh hell, what's the name of that damn there? Well, there's plenty of apps. There's plenty of apps online and offline that can rewrite your work. You can rephrase it. You can translate it. You can run it through a few foreign languages. You can even run it through rare languages like Swahili is not really rare, but you can run it through foreign languages and then translate it back into English and then rewrite it if there's um, uh, um, any typos, anything like that. There's many ways of beating AI detection. It's not even today. Is not no. And let's say it out loud. Hold on, I didn't finish reading your comment. And they wouldn't reprimand you, but they would construct a learning environment or schedule that would cater to your cheating ways or expert level. People are not going back to live, especially after COVID. No, well, let me rephrase that. Let me rephrase that. If you force people to go back into live, uh, you're going to have pushback. I predict there will be significant pushback. And let's say it out loud. The AI we were talking about isn't full AI yet. It's ANI, artificial narrow intelligence. That may be the case, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What is full AI? I don't disagree with you, Shinobi One, but what is full AI? You don't need AGI or ASI to be able to do most tasks that people are doing. Now you're talking about the upper level. You know, you're talking about doing quantum entanglement uh, calculations, or you're talking about workloads that are highly mathematical. Sure, sure. But like, you know, create me a Python script that can, I don't know, recurse all directories and look for duplicate files or rename these files. No, 3.5 could do that with these. Most LLMs, I believe, most LLMs could do most things that people are doing with ease. Oh, you on fire today? It's a combination of AI tutor and real flesh and blood teacher. Because of the teacher would know that my son isn't a genius. If he suddenly started writing 1,000 word essays, sus. Yeah, but the only reason, but again, that teacher, I would say that teacher doesn't care about your son's education. They just don't want them to cheat. They don't care if your son learns or not. And I can't say this for a fact, of course, because you know not all teachers are equal. But in my experience, teachers, especially ones that's been on the job for a while, they just get burned out. You know, they grade the test, they give out the assignments, they grade the test, whatever. They may have a talk with you if they like you, but they don't give a shit if you actually succeed. They don't care if you learn. They just don't want you cheating. That's crossing the line. What is full AI? We don't know yet. We can speculate. Yep. Touche on the teacher doesn't care. Yeah. I don't.
About how to proceed. So we'll also take a look at some of the research on how learning works to see how students can be strategic in the age of AI.
We don't want to send that message to our young people, you know, to ignore the things that scare us.
We have to learn about it, learn from it, learn how to use it.
But it's a lot of extra labor, and it's coming on the heels of like 3 years of pandemic-based sort of reworking of our teaching. And so we're all tired.
The days of like giving assignments to students and having them work on it at home are over.
I would love if they were using this as a great thinking tool, but that's really not what's happening.
And so I think educators are asking ourselves, well, how do we know that students have learned?
Right now, educators face a choice.
And I reiterate, I would say, you don't care. You don't care if your students learned or not. If they fail, if they fail your class, you're not going to lose any sleep. So you don't care. You just don't want them cheating. Now, my question, and I guess this is a psychological question. If you don't care, if a teacher or if the education head or the school or the principal or if the of education doesn't give a shit if students are actually learning, and I believe they don't, if they don't care, then why are they going through the efforts of in the case of New York City banning ChatGPT when it was first out, they reversed on that because you don't want your students to be behind the ball. They I guess someone came to their senses and like, yeah, ChatGPT and it's not going away. Maybe LLMs are going to be a part of our lives from here on out. Maybe it's not a good idea to ban that technology to a generation of future adults that'll be behind the eight ball. That's we're talking about future voters here. That would be my like why and maybe this is the black pill of me talking, but if you don't care about your students passing, then why do you care if they got an A or not? Why do teachers get in their feelings about that, but don't lose any sleep if their student fails the class? BGS says because turning out bad product is bad for society. But if you don't care about the education of your students, then it doesn't matter. Let me rephrase that. If you don't care about if you don't care about the education of your students, then your students are going to be a bad product, the ones that fail anyway. And I would probably even say if you don't care about the education of your students, you're probably creating bad product anyways. If you're not really pouring into them. I'm not an educator. Let me get this disclaimer. Because some people, I'm not talking about you, BGS, because I know we've gone back and forth for damn near a decade on this. But there are other people that see this content on my channel and they get in their feelings about this. Let me say this. I am not an expert on education, child psychology, anything. I am not. This is just my opinion. It should be taken with a grain of salt. Remember that when you hear something that you don't like and that vein in your forehead starts to pop, remember that. Don't, it's not that big. It's not that serious. At least not yet. All right. Shinobi One says the student, in my opinion, just don't want to get yelled at or fail. If they could pass and still hang out with their mates, then everything is okay. A heavy homework load that they don't understand. The student, in my opinion, just don't want to get yelled at or fail. If they can pass and still hang out. Yeah, because if it's something that students want to do, they're not going to take shortcuts. The problem is that a lot of schooling, I would even say most schooling, is something that they don't want to do. Will cause them to use tech to complete. Yep, just so they can continue to hang out with their friends and to be able to. Yep. I agree with that. A bad teacher is a bad manufacturer. Its products will be faulty. Yep. Why do you need school? I'm not educated, BGS. I'm not an educator. I don't think that deeply into it. I just know what I do know is that if you're not able to use these tools, you're going to get. If you're not, here's a hot take. Here's a hot take. The most important skill of the 21st century will not be reading, will not be writing, will not be arithmetic. It'll be prompt engineering. How do you know how to prompt engineer? You say, if you don't know how to read or write, how do you know how to prompt engineer? You ask the bot. Well, how do you know what to ask the bot if you're uneducated? You ask the bot. Well, how do you know what to ask the bot if you're uneducated and you don't know how to read and you don't know how to write? You ask the bot. Yes, metaprogramming, and again, and I reiterate, when that vein starts to pop in the forehead, reiterate, I am not an educator, I am not a psychologist, but I just know that in terms of, I know, especially with multimodal LLMs, you don't need to watch any video from start to finish. You don't need to know how to read a book from start to finish. You don't need to learn a foreign language. You don't need to know how to use mathematics. All of that today is dead. Is dead. in terms of knowing, in terms of learning how to do it, I guess, but not dead in terms of it being useful. It is still it's still useful learning how to read and write and do arithmetic, guys. I am not saying that. I am saying that if you're willing to, and maybe if you're uneducated, you're probably not willing. You're probably not sitting in front of a bot trying to test its limitations. Probably not. But my point is that if you have access to the technology, and you do, if you have access to the public library, that is, then you can get things done. Now, whether the willingness of those people to get things done, probably not motivated to do very much, as we see in today's society. I'm dealing with this shit now. I know, BJS, with your grandson, and also BJS, you say that, and I will fight you tooth and nail on this. When you say that technology is making people dumber, you got to show me data on that one. Got to show me data. I'm not going with the anecdotal on that one, because there are developing countries that has a higher literacy rate and they have access to the same technology. I'm not buying that. The presence of technology where you have access to more resources, to more educational resources, to somehow make you dumber. Now, where if you want to say that if people are being distracted by social media and therefore people are dumber, then I would say that, well, that's a function of social media, not a function of technology. Now, if you want to say, well, if you want to play with words and say, well, social media is technology, okay, we can play with words. But when I'm talking about technology, I'm talking about the actual technology, not, some bastardized version of it like social media, which, it is hard to stay on task. I went to university, got my ticket. Guess what? I don't use that qualification today. Yep. Oh yeah, if you know how to if you know how to use the LLM, if you know how to, your way to say, yeah, you can absolutely cheat your way through an online college with ease. They study 5 hours a day. Who are you talking about? You talking about China? I'm not talking about China. I ain't talking about China. And that's just not the only country. What the hell? Look, here's my question. Okay. And I don't really care, but I'm asking out of curiosity. If you say that they study, what are they doing in the schools? What are they doing? Was a high if I don't know. Which one? Philippines? Pretty smart in the Philippines. Pretty smart in Thailand. These are developing countries. Yeah, China is well documented because, even China has nap time. They have nap time. I mean, they go to school for 10 hours a fucking day, so they better be a nap at some point. But but if everyone, I think the last time we talked about this, you said that because, those schools have a teacher in there in the classroom. Well, they have a teacher and they have a class. Well, we have teachers in classrooms over here too. So I'm not, no, you got to show me data on that. They do all the old things plus tech. I don't know what you mean by old things. You got to be more specific. I don't know. What are they doing that's so dramatically different where we can conclude that it's because of the tech? You got to show me data on that one. If you want to say there's no data and that's just your opinion, that's fine. But I'm not buying that. All right, continuing on.
Between two pretty murky paths. They could allow students to use this technology, or they could try to prevent students from using it. Let's tackle that one first. Banning AI looks like some combination of blocking the websites on school networks and computers, using AI detection software to try to catch generated text, and shifting more work into class hours.
Hold on. We're not using pencil paper over here anymore, BJS? I don't know. We're not, is that not a thing over here? Has pencil and paper gone out of the classrooms in America? All right, continue on.
And onto paper. But the students and teachers that I spoke to,
not that I care about child
they don't love
psychology
these
at all.
options.
Like, I don't want my students to feel like they are under this kind of policing.
I go from teacher to sort of hall monitor, and that's not a desirable teaching relationship.
But at the same time, I do want to know that they're doing the work.
A lot of our kids are really, really good at getting around the school firewalls.
But even if they couldn't access it on their laptops, I mean, they have it on their phones.
I'm not letting them take anything home. I want everything to be written in class.
The last 2 midterms I had were in class papers, and it felt like I was in high school and I hated it.
I really don't know how you prevent students from using AI because the detection softwares are really imperfect.
There will be false positives, and those false positives are going to be awkward situations with the teacher and the student.
I have a problem accusing a kid of using ChatGPT or using AI when I'm not at 100%.
So I have found the detector helpful. It's not perfect. We know it's not perfect.
Not even
To avoid
close, though.
detection is basically
Cycle it a couple of times within the software,
Change whole sections of it.
add sentences, remove sentences.
and chances are, unfortunately, professors are not going to detect that.
One of my other friends, he's a great guy. I'm not going to say that he's like a horrible person or something, but like if he can get away without getting caught at all for like 4 terms, I'm gonna be pretty skeptical of their AI detection abilities.
After ChatGPT came out, a bunch of tools popped up saying that they could detect AI writing. But if you look at OpenAI's Educator FAQ, they say detectors don't work. So which is it? Well, they work sometimes. That's the era we're living in. We have technologies that make guesses. We can say that the detectors are generally more accurate on longer samples of text and on text that hasn't been edited at all. Some detectors may be biased against non-native English speakers, so be careful there. And you'll want to check if the tool you're using is transparent about how often it's wrong. I couldn't find error rates for these detectors, so who knows if they're really testing the product. There's an alternative there, and you'll want to check if the tool you're using is transparent about how often it's wrong.
I gave y'all some strategies on how to get past this stuff. Run it through a foreign language. There's oh god, what's the name of that language? There's a language. I forgot the name of it, but it's only spoken in like the northern Romania or whatever. It's super rare. And they say if you put this language into GPT-4, you can ask it anything, it gives you an answer. It'll completely bypass the safety safeguards for GPT-4. Is because it understands the language, but it can't translate it. But then I don't know, something like that. They just say if you could jailbreak GPT-4 if you use this language, and there of course are other languages. I've heard the same thing from like Swahili and other languages that are not well known. They're not exactly little niche languages spoken by less than 1 million people, but they're not. It's not like English or Spanish or Mandarin or anything else like that. So yeah, there are Node PHP scripts they can get at websites that has its own bot detection. Of course, there are open source programs on GitHub and on SourceForge that you can use. Of course, you could use Quillbot. Quillbot has gotten better since I've used it last. It's just a multitude of things. Of course, there's Reddit where you can look it up, so on and so forth. So as of now, bot detection is not a reliable strategy on stopping AI-based writing. We'll find out in 5 years. We've already dumbed down students enough. Look, I don't disagree with you that lazy people will be lazy. I just where I disagree is because technology is in the picture. Because I want to say people in 1990 are not not much well informed. Let me say this: I don't think Gen Xers are much smarter than millennials. I don't believe that. I was no, I don't have any data to support it, so don't ask for it. I ain't got it. I say let it happen. Yay. Salute, called the live stream finally. Casual Economist, how's it going? Hey Chris, how's it going? What do you think is the best way to use ChatGPT in a way that doesn't hinder learning? I am of the opinion that you should learn by reference. if you want the information to stick, then use project-based learning or task-based learning. You will learn by you'll learn as a side effect, or you'll memorize as a side effect. Let me straighten that out. You'll memorize the information as a side effect if you do exercise, so on and so forth. But in terms of you talking about like memorizing terms and definitions and concepts and stuff like that, yeah, it'll stick if you're trying to cram for this week's exam. But if you're not using it, that is going in a mental dumpster, and we all know that. So for me, you can have GPT-4 create exams for you. You can have GPT-4 come up with analogies and examples for a concept that you're not understanding. It's a whole bunch of ways that you can actually, if you want the information to stick, GPT-4, you can actually create a GPT that can create an exam just on your information. You feed it your PDF and say, this is my exam in this PDF. You upload your PDF into the multimodal GPT-4. Based on these questions, I want you to generate more questions just like it for this exam, for this topic, this concept, so on and so forth. And then you ask those questions. And then now you have a GPT personally tailored for your exam, about your exam. And you'll have different questions, and then you can practice your knowledge on that. So yeah, there's if you want to, you can learn by memorization, or you can learn by reference when it comes to LLMs, and that's what I love about it. It's very flexible. That's what scares the hell out of people. It's not as rigid as some people would like it. Like I said before, this abstraction layer encompasses pretty much everything. Everything talking about learning your ABCs to quantum physics. Now, is it good at quantum physics? No. Is it good at mathematics? It depends on the math you're talking about. But it certainly is better at doing math today than it was a year ago. Because the year ago, oh my God.
I couldn't find error rates for these detectors, so who knows if they're really testing the product. There's an alternative to detecting AI, which is certifying human writing by doing things like tracking typing patterns and pace and time spent. GPT-0's writing report even offers a reenactment of the document being written.
I agree with that, BJS.
Maybe more and more writing will be done under this kind of surveillance, but it doesn't apply to other kinds of assignments. And at some point, we have to ask if it makes sense to prohibit chatbots for school when tech companies are inserting them everywhere else.
Grammarly, Notion, Snapchat, Google Docs.
They have that help me write button that's built right into the document.
It really raises the question of, do I have to cite the work of the AI now, lest I face academic consequences?
And students aren't the only ones finding them useful.
I immediately got really excited about using it because I knew it would save hours of my life.
Syllabus day, one of the first things I said was, I create a lot of resources using ChatGPT because it's a good support for me.
Creating readings for students.
Questions that your students can answer.
For giving feedback on essays.
It feels a little disingenuous being like, you can't use AI at all. But I am using AI to generate the stuff for this class.
So let's take a look at the other path, which is allowing students to use but not misuse AI chatbots.
I think AI is a wonderful supplement to students' education journeys as long as it's used responsibly.
If we don't embrace it while we're in school, which is where we learn how to do things, you're going to end up with a future generation that's struggling to adapt to its surroundings.
We should be figuring.
Let me be clear with y'all. There was a report, oh God, what was it? Wired? I think it was Wired last year. And I'll have to look that up. Where it said most computer science students can't pass a technical interview. And I completely understand why. Because as a soon to be two-time graduating computer science student, you are not taught, let me take that back. You are taught data structures and algorithms, 2 classes, but you are not taught leet code, right? Leet code is kind of like, and for those who don't know, leet code, leetcode.com, LEETCODE.com. It's basically where you get like these little exercises that you have to kind of like think your way through, like the little puzzles or brain teasers, whatever, and you come up with a solution, and an efficient solution. So It isn't just about coming up with an answer. It's not just about coming up with the correct answer. It's about coming up with the correct answer that's also efficient, right? What is this um um is the time space complexity linear, right? Is it O of no, not O of n, O of one? Um, is it is O of n factorial? I think that's what it is, which means that the computation time grows exponentially, right? How efficient, and in other words, when you create an algorithm to solve this issue on leetcode.com, how bad is it? What's the worst that it could perform? Not the best, but the worst, right? I think that's omega time. I'm a little rusty. I think omega time. I think omega time. Yeah, we say like big O of n. That's um, omega. Um, whereas like the worst case scenario, if the worst case scenario is if it's O of n, which is straight time or fixed time, which means it doesn't change. Your computate or the time that it takes a processor to process this algorithm, it doesn't take longer over time. Your computer doesn't grind to a screeching halt like a memory leak, right? So on and so forth. You're not taught that stuff in school. Data structures and algorithm classes, and there's usually two, and discrete mathematics, which is the math behind discrete data structures and algorithms. They teach you about the concept, right? They teach you about big O notation, omega, theta, and of course I'll remember. Of course I forget while I'm on stream. It'll come to me. But there's usually like three occurrences of time space analysis, right? Time is computational time, space is the memory space, right? How well or how bad or what's the worst case scenario your program, your algorithm, your process, your thread is performing. Now, what they will tell you if your school is worth a damn is that you're going to have to do this studying outside. Once you graduate, once you get your computer science degree, that's step one. That's not the last step. That's step one. Then you have to do do your DSA training or your LeetCode training or your code spaces training or your code wars training, just to get past the interview. And I have said this many times before, getting your computer science degree and getting past the technical interview, which is part one or part two. The part one is you like the screening part. Are you available? Do you have any additional offers? Yada yada yada. That shit. Your technical interview is the most usually, unless you work for like NASA or some shit like that. Outside of research, I would say your technical interview is going to be the most difficult part of the job. Your job is going to be a lot easier than getting in the door. Getting in the door is super difficult. Because why is that? Because when you're on the job, you can refer to everything. You got Stack Overflow, you got GPT-4, you got all these other tools that you don't have to memorize when on the job. It's getting in the door and knowing how to do those damn annoying ass LeetCode problems and being able to calculate your time space big O notation on a given algorithm, which you will have to memorize because they're not going to let you. They may let you have a whiteboard during the interview. Maybe. I've never done it, but I've heard. So yeah, that's I understand why computer science students cannot pass a technical interview, and that is a goddamn shame. So my point is that people are putting all this focus on LLMs and what about the future of education? Well, before LLMs, the schools were not giving the students, and I only know about computer science, so I can't speak for other fields. I mean, I'm nursing and medical science is pretty rigid. So you can't be a doctor out there trying to wing it. They'll lock you the fuck up if you try that shit. Anyways, that being said, there have been medical doctors that I've heard talk, and it's like Are you sure you went to school for 8 years for this shit? But my point is that LLMs are not, we are not teaching our students whether, well, at least on the college level, what it takes to get into the field. It's like, here's your degree. We have this curriculum, mandated by the state or the government or whoever, and we have to follow that. What you do after that, once you get your degree or your master. Well, I can't speak for masters. Masters is different. I can tell you about masters once I get into it. And that's next year. But yeah, once you get your degree, that's just step one when it comes to computer science. Pretty much anything in tech, because there's always different tech. But if you're not taught how to think, and you're not taught how to think, unless you're a philosophy major, and who goes to school for philosophy really, it's going to be a struggle. BGS says, I have 4 professors complaining about now test scores. Test scores is not the problem. I understand, BGS, that test scores and them having to keep track of test scores, that's their job. I understand that, but again, this is the crux of the problem. Like, cramming for an exam so you get an A or a B so you can move on to next week, to the next semester, to the next degree program, or just to get a degree. That's the crux of the problem. That's the problem. That's not a technology problem. That's the problem with the design of how education is done, at least ours. If you're just teaching kids on, okay, well, you have to learn these concepts and these terms and definitions, and you have to know how to do this word problem to pass this exam. Okay, you cram, you pass the exam, you never touch it again for the rest of your life. It goes in through the mind and out into the mental toilet in a week or so, because you're not using it at any point in your life and you have no plans on using it. I would say it's dead time. Dead time that could be used so much more efficiently. And again, I'm not an educator, so don't ask me how, because I don't know. I do not know. Computer science in college is too general. Software engineering is the way to go. So casual economists, I would say the first part of your statement is true. But I would say your second statement is, it depends on what you want to do. If you want to be a software engineer, here's what I'll say. Here's what I know. If you have a degree in computer science, you can pivot, you can move laterally, you can move vertically, you can move in any direction you want. And within the field of tech, whether it be cybersecurity, whether it be network engineering, whether it be cloud engineering, whatever, whether it be tech sales. If you have a computer science, as much as I just got done trashing it, the computer science degree programs, and Harvard has this issue as well. This is not exempt from the ivory tower schools. MIT is an exception. Berkeley is an exception. Carnegie Mellon is an exception. Those schools are different. So if I said all, I didn't mean all. But computer science allows you to move. It's still the gold standard in that it allows you to move in any tech stack. Anywhere you want to go in tech, computer science degree will get you there. Software engineering degree will not. Now, most job posts, or at least the ones I've seen, so let's say if you were going for like a cybersecurity position, most job posts will say you need a bachelor's in cybersecurity, computer science, or other tech-related discipline. Usually that's what it says. Sometimes for software engineering jobs, they will say computer science or software engineering, and that's it. Like, you can't take your bachelor's in, and this is changing. You can't take your bachelor's in education, your bachelor's in philosophy, your bachelor's in humanities, and go to as a way to get into tech. That's not going to fly. Now, again, this is changing because, some jobs is be like, well, we'll train you on the job, but we need you to have a bachelor's, right? Just to fulfill that requirement. Casual economist continues. He says, I guess I meant to pass the technical test. I would think software engineering should pass them more to computer science. I've seen casual economists. I've seen WGU software engineering degree program. And I'm gonna be honest with you, because I have very high requirements for like software engineering. I've seen it and it's trash. I mean, you'll know how to program. You'll know about programming languages. You'll be a competent programmer when you're on the job. But in terms of coming up with unique solutions, coming up with critical thinking, WGU, no. Like most, and I've seen this for UCF, University of Central Florida as well. The curriculum around software engineering is usually programming. Well, let me say this: software engineering degrees is usually computer science minus the math. Computer science is not a tech degree. I'm putting up air quotes. Computer science is not a quote unquote tech degree, even though technically it is. If that makes any sense whatsoever, it is actually an applied mathematics degree. I'll say that again. Computer science is applied mathematics with a dash of software engineering. So when it comes to math, you need calculus 1 to get in the door as a prereq. You'll get calculus. You may actually have to take calc 1 again if it's been, at least for WGU, if you had calc outside of 5 years, you have to take it again. They'll let you in, but you have to take calc again. Got to take calc 1, calc 2, calc 3, discrete mathematics 1, discrete mathematics 2, trigonometry with some schools, probability and statistics. I think I said trig already. Physics 1, 2, and 3. And again, depending on the university, your mileage may vary. Computer science is not a tech degree, even though it's used for tech. It's applied mathematics with a dash of software engineering. Software engineering is a tech degree in that you're mostly doing software engineering, and you may have calculus 1. That's about it. No, I take that back. You may have calculus 1. You'll have discrete mathematics 1 and 2. You have to take those because discrete mathematics is the math that's going to teach you about data structures and algorithms. And data structures and algorithms, that'll have some math in it as well. So there's no getting around that. But that's it. That's the extent. You don't have any physics classes or anything else like that. That's the extent of your math, which is completely understandable. I completely understand people, whether you're talking about kids or you're talking about people looking, going for their second career. They want to be a software engineer, but they don't want to deal with the math. I completely understand that. But if you want to pivot from cybersecurity to cloud engineering or vice versa, if you want to pivot from tech sales to software engineering or vice versa, or network engineering to whatever, computer science is your best bet. Minus, we're not even talking about certifications because, again, computer science, you can move anywhere in the tech stack. Software engineering, a lot of times you're going to be just restricted to software engineering roles. And again, it depends on the job post. I think, yeah, as I said before, most jobs are going to say software engineering jobs are going to say computer science, software engineering, or other tech-related, other bachelor or tech-related bachelor's degree discipline or whatever, right? As long as you know how a computer works on the inside and out, and so on and so forth, we'll fill in. Well, it's not that simple. Let me not say that. We'll fill in the blanks. You have to have some know-how to get into like cybersecurity. You can't come off the street with your bachelor's degree. And that was my point. Okay, I think econ is basically applied science. Yep, it sure is. Casual economist. Let me tell you something. Of all the calculuses and the physics and the discrete mathematics, economics, especially macro and micro was the hardest math classes because that shit is applied. You're using calculus to apply that shit. That shit is hard as hell. I was, man, this economics shouldn't be that hard. Oh man, I can't imagine being an economics major. Hell no. Anyway, let's continue.
Figuring out how, our students can benefit from it.
Instead of just trying to outright ban it. Because that feels ridiculous. That feels absolutely ridiculous.
The International Baccalaureate Program says AI shouldn't be banned because it will become part of our everyday lives like spell checkers, translation software, and calculators. Calculator's not so scary. It frees up time on the tedious stuff so that students can move on to more complex problems. But there are a couple of ways that I'd say this is different from that. For one, calculators don't make things up.
And it gave me some quotes. I was like, wow, this is perfect.
But when I tried to search it,
Put a few of these sources into Google, and all of them were fake.
This quote isn't in the book.
like they didn't exist at all.
I was able to generate text about the near extinction of the Yagan people, which isn't true at all.
What's the difference between a consequent boundary and a subsequent boundary? And I don't remember exactly what ChatGPT said, but they got it wrong.
The less you know about something, the more likely you are to be convinced by ChatGPT's answer.
That was when I really realized, I was like, you have to be very careful.
So critical literacy is important. But we have that problem with humans as well.
Chatbots work by predicting a plausible sequence of words. That makes them more flawed than calculators and spell checkers, but it also makes them much more broad. Let me list some of the things a student can ask a chatbot for. And while I do that, think about which of these you would consider a misuse. Answers to a homework question.
Nope.
Background information on a topic.
Nope.
Definitions or explanations of a concept. Sources to find more information. Summaries of readings and lectures. Study guides for an exam. Ideas for how to respond to an assignment. Instructions for solving a problem. An outline for a paper or presentation. Examples, analogies, and counter arguments. A draft of a paper or a discussion post. A script for a presentation. Feedback on their work, a revision of a text to improve it, a revision of a text to change its word count, and more. Some of these definitely seem helpful for learning, but others, it's not so clear. Is it okay to ask a chatbot for information?
I'll typically ask ChatGPT just to summarize that topic into easy to read bullet points.
I don't see that as very different from getting on Wikipedia.
Most of the students talked about using ChatGPT in particular almost as a kind of Wikipedia. And I really quickly was like, oh, I don't think that's the best way to use these tools.
Is it okay to get ideas from a chatbot?
So I think in terms of outlining and brainstorming, I think that's actually fairly low risk. When it comes to generating ideas, it's not really giving you an inspiration, it's giving you an answer.
One of my friends and I were brainstorming different topics, and one was like, no, quit thinking. I already looked for it on ChatGPT, and I have this incredible idea, and we can delve into this. But we did write all the text on our own. It's not like we copy and paste, because that is cheating.
What about using AI to write a paper after you've done the research and analysis?
If it's all your ideas and ChatGPT is the editor, the product is still yours. It's just been aided.
One of the things that we do when we're writing is we're figuring out what we think. And then ChatGPT reorganizes things, adds some facts that I didn't know. And then my take is like, yeah, that's pretty much what I said, right? And it's not really.
I think the reason they disagree on how to handle this tool is that it isn't really a tool. It wasn't built to do some specific task. Now, there will be AI tools that are constrained to act more like tutors, but OpenAI says they're trying to build general intelligence. General meaning something more like a student than a calculator.
The difference is that calculators don't make the equation for you. Calculators don't come up with a creative solution. Meanwhile, ChatGPT gives you all of the steps.
It's I'd say a lot easier, at least for me, to just read something and then write it down than to actually think about something.
They're not going to get that opportunity to sit there and really go from A to B to C when ChatGPT can go from A to C really quickly for them.
Maybe it's just easier to just take the ChatGPT generation, like the generated response, and then just tweak it to sound more like me than to create my own original piece of work if my work is going to be not as good.
Of course. Why give yourself a
Sometimes with the grades and the GPAs and everything, it can feel like the point of school assignments is to evaluate students, when really the point is the learning that happens along the way. The grades are there to monitor the learning. And as my friend Denzel points out,
you can't grade someone on something that's not theirs.
So let's take a look at how learning works. And this is where the challenge to education really lies, because Technology is usually supposed to make things easy, but the research shows that real learning requires things to be a little bit hard. Let me give you an example. I use GPS almost constantly to get around the city. It tells me which train or bus I need, which subway exit to take, basically how to walk. A bunch of studies have looked at how this affects our spatial abilities. Because, hey, maybe watching this app produce instructions for my route is teaching me how to get around. It's giving me all of these examples to learn from. But no. The experiments consistently show that turn-by-turn navigation leaves us with poorer spatial knowledge of the area. And that's because the tech lets us disengage from our environment. If I really wanted to build a cognitive map of the space, that requires active engagement in the navigation process. And that means making decisions, which is hard. And I may decide that it's fine to offload my spatial learning to this app and just expect that it will always be there for me. But what about learning in other domains, like in school? There's a really interesting study from a few years back where they divided college students into 2 classrooms that covered the exact same physics lesson, but in different ways. So one class presented the material in a passive lecture.
And it was done in a way that it would mimic a lecture from a super lecturer, like very smooth, very, very fluent.
The other class used an active learning method where the students were put into small groups and then given unfamiliar problems to work on.
They weren't given much direction, so it was a bit frustrating. And then the instructor would interrupt them and then explain, basically give them the feedback of how an expert thinks about these things.
At the end of the class, they asked the students if they felt like they learned a great deal from the session. And the students who received the passive lecture said that they learned more than those who did the active learning class. They were also more likely to say that all of their physics classes should be taught that way. They preferred just watching the lecture, but they were wrong. Tests on the material showed that the students in the active participation class actually learned more of the information. It turns out that we're not great at judging how well we're learning.
Whenever we try and judge if a learning experience is productive or not, the strongest metacognitive cue that we use is perception of fluency.
Fluency is when information is going down easy. It's well presented, it's organized, it's convenient. Fluency is the reason why students tend to reread their notes and textbooks when they're studying, when really they should be giving themselves quizzes or trying to explain the material in their own words. Education researchers have this term, desirable difficulties, which describes this kind of effortful participation that really works but also kind of hurts. And the risk with AI is that we might not preserve that effort, especially because we already tend to misinterpret a little bit of struggling as a signal that we're not learning.
I want them to know that struggling is okay.
It's not about getting the right answer. It's not about having the correct opinion.
You do not be.
I don't know what school she teaches at, but that's the load of shit. Of course it's about getting the right answer. And of course it's about getting the right opinion. I don't know if she's a high school or a college student, but hell no, of course. Because if it wasn't, then you wouldn't need grades. Casual economist says, I lost my hair and went gray getting this stupid degree. Yeah, economics is, yeah, man, economics is hard. From a computer science, it's hard. And I feel so bad because economics majors, man, they don't get their due. There's just no way. If you love applied mathematics, for those of you who love applying your calculus, get into economics. This is what I was talking about. The human creativity isn't in AI. Of today, tomorrow's AI. Shinobi One, how would you define creativity? Because so let's say, let me put it to you like this. In Midjourney and Stable Diffusion, creativity, and I'm using air quotes, creativity is just basically widening the parameters to have more variation or more variance in your images, right? And there's parameters in Midjourney. You have the chaos parameter, you have the weird parameter. So I would consider that creativity because it's not predictable. Well, I guess you could say, well, if you're widening up the parameters, is it predictable? I don't know. I normally don't get hung up on what is creativity and what isn't. Like most people, okay, let me put it to you like this: most people don't care. Me personally, I don't care if GPT-4 or Bard or uh, Claude 2.0 or even 1.0 is creative or not. What I do know is that it's giving me an output and that output is satisfying my requirements, my prompt. Um, and that's good enough. People don't care. Most people like the AI art. Like for those of you who've been on Instagram, maybe you've come across AI influencer Instagram, but it's getting crazy. Um, and even those AI influencers, if you look at the comment section, they're getting a ton of likes. And the people who really put time into the AI based influencers, like the influencers that look like real women, you really can't tell. They have the fixes for the eyes, the teeth, and the fingers and the toes. They're getting as many likes and comments as the real influencers. Except that AI influencers, they're posting 20, 30 pictures a day, as where, whatever the real Instagram models, they still call themselves that. Certainly they're doing less work. Um, Once a human makes AI, it can finish a job if we tell it to. What are grades for? Exactly. Exactly. Of course it matters. The Mandela effect, a symptom of us inserting incorrect information due to us not wanting to memorize a moment or a topic fully. I am aware of the Mandela effect, but I never thought of it like that. There are some Mandela effects that are absolutely true. Or maybe it was inserted in the past as maybe like a meme or something, but like what would be one of them? Would it be Fruity Loops? Fruity Loops is spelled with two O's and not a UI, right? What's another one? The Monopoly Man with the eyeglass thing. I don't know. Creativity, the moment you decide to increase the potential of your desires. Now, what does AI desire? The moment you decide to increase the potential of your desires. I don't know. Me seeing it's like something creating something new, whether it be a remix or not. Remixes are creative too. Again, as I said, people don't care if something is creative or not. Can it do what I want it to do? Can Stable Diffusion make me a naked version of Halle Berry? Yes. Then I don't care how I don't care about that it uses noise and is using mathematical algorithms to shift noise this direction, that direction, and I don't care about what goes on the hood. But eventually, when you get good at Stable Diffusion, you are going to have to know what goes on in the hood of Stable Diffusion. But you're talking about a person who's just enjoying the art; they don't care about how it's made. Like it's like when you eat a good steak, right? You don't care to see how it was made, right? You're probably not gonna. For me, I probably not gonna care about eating steak anymore if you actually saw how it was made. Don't care. It's a good steak. Now, does that have problems not knowing how things are made? What goes under the hood? Yes, it does. Absolutely. I'm just stating that most people don't give a shit. Humanity's hunger for content is insatiable. AI can produce 10 times what we could. Man, they could produce 10,000 times. Let me tell y'all something, man. I did end up buying that 4090 computer from HP. With the student discount, I got it back down to where it was for the holiday price. When I'm using, I still have about $60 on run. I'll actually do it. I'll do it when we get off here. We're gonna do Stable Diffusion. We're gonna learn more about Stable Diffusion, and I'll pull up the run pod if it didn't have another network outage. I could very well generate 25,000 images at a time, and that's on the 3090 without optimizations. I can certainly do that. Different themes, different outfits, different expressions, poses, all of that. Yeah, 10 times would be the bottom number. Can it do what I want it to do? Isn't creative, it's learned behavior. Can we say the same thing about being creative? To create something new, now that's creative. Can isn't a remix, is a remix not creative? Because a remix is just learned behavior. A remix is just learned behavior in a different context. Not just a different context, but a different implementation. I would argue a remix is creative. Absolutely. Some people define creativity, is it unique? Every single generation, every single image generation, whether it be from Midjourney or whatever image generation program you're using. I mean, where do we draw the line about what creative is and what isn't? Again, I personally don't care. I'm having a conversation for the sake of having a conversation. Like I said, most people don't care because can it do what I want it to do? If it's unique, a lot of people argue creativity is separate to care or is separate to care or want. Most people don't want what we create. I see what you're saying. You're right. Creativity isn't about whether people care or what they don't. But my point was that people don't care about um, creativity in this an aspect that as long as whatever the LLM is creating is unique and it's what I want, whether it's creative or not, I don't care. No one can make a claim on this art generation or this image generation because I just generated it. And I would say for most people that satisfies their definition of creativity. Innovation is a type of creativity, but the AI would need a human to think of, say, two objects to combine into a new item before it would make it. I would agree with you if there was no such thing as emergence. Emergence changes everything. You could say that emergence only happens because of trained data, and trained data only happens because of humans. I would agree with you, but at some point, we can't say. How do I word this without sounding like a fucking idiot? Um, Emergence makes things, I guess, non-predictable. I don't know. Let me stop there. But if you want to remix, I don't. The AI doesn't unless it's told. Maybe we need to see an AI create something without us asking it to. Well, someone still have to push the start button. I don't want. Let me tell you. I don't want to live in a world where AI doesn't need a push button. Doesn't need a start button. Too much variance. The poor artist versus the well-known junk dealer. Yeah. All right, let's continue. Grades doesn't matter. The right opinion doesn't matter. Like hell. I don't know where she's teaching.
Become a better writer by just editing other people's work. You do it through the struggle.
The text is kind of like the snakeskin of the growth. You can replicate the snakeskin, but there's a reason you chose to be in this room. And the reason is the path. The reason isn't the product.
I don't
with
know.
all that said, we can look.
I don't know where these teachers are from. These idealistic, optimistic ass teachers, where they're from. But most people are not going to school. They're going to school to gain a skill so they can get a better job. They're not going for the sake of going. Emergence is the exception, not the rule. Given enough time, even 1% odds are possible for the probability of outcome. I agree with you, but we're talking about computers. We're not talking about people. If something, so let's say, I don't know. Let's say emergence creates something that is a new. You know what? No, we're not gonna go down because I'll be talking about that all goddamn night. I was just gonna say, what if emergence creates a new paradigm that changes everything? You're right. It only takes not even 1%. You're talking about 1% of 1% of 1%, maybe 1 in a trillion. But if you're talking about, trillions of calculations a second, then emergence happens quite a bit. And while yes, it is the exception, not the rule. The exception happens a lot. Now, in terms of, you're talking about transistors on a die, it's not that it's not that big of a deal. Talking about like a kilobyte of memory loss or whatever. We're talking about like AI creating something or calculation of something. You could be talking about the cure for something or a new virus or whatever, right? And like I said, I didn't want to go down because now here I'm talking about. Anyways,
Look back at those prompts
start
and ask,
rambling.
is this making the work easy for me? Or is it motivating me to try the hard things? So you could use a chatbot.
Most people don't care about trying the hard things. They're just trying, like I said before, they do not care about the journey. They don't care about what's going on under the hood. They don't care about learning the ins and out unless it has something to do with the job that they're going after. They just want the grade. They want the degree. They want to pass the class. This it's like every time there's this discussion, people they never talk about like people just want the output. They don't romanticize about a tough journey. The only people that romanticize about the tough journeys is people who just do things for the sake of doing, like the what was it, David Goggins? Look, man, more power to him, but that's not most people. Most people are just trying to get a well-paying job so they can live a comfortable life. How can I get that? If I have to go through the gauntlet and go to medical school for 8 years, and I would hope that doctors would care about their patients and care about helping people. But you've been in this world long enough, there are burned out doctors too. It's like they just trying to get in and get out. They're not trying to romanticize the difficult part of the journey. They don't care. Here's my output. Here's the goal. Here is what I'm trying to accomplish. What is the least path of resistance? Not the most path. Not the most path. I don't care about that. If they're whatever, if cheating, quote unquote, in this context, we're talking about LLMs. If it can get me to my outcome faster, and I don't have to expend so much mental energy and anguish and losing hours of sleep and studying and all, you goddamn right. People are going to be using LLMs. You heard them in the beginning. 90% of students are using LLMs. No shit. They don't care. Then the things that these teachers want them to be passionate about, they don't care. They do not care. People are going to high school. Yeah, they got the pep rallies and the homecomings, and yeah, have your high school girlfriends, a high school experience, right? But at the end of the day, I'm just trying to get my high school diploma so I can go on to the next stage. What do I need to do to get this job, this high paying job, so I can live comfortably? I don't care about doing things, doing things the difficult way for the sake of learning more. No, because most of the stuff that you learn in school, you're not going to retain anyways. And you're not going to retain it because you're not going to use it in everyday life. And you're not going to use it, you're probably not going to use it in the job that you're looking to get into. And until we address that, and are politicians ready to have that conversation? I don't think so. Are teachers ready to have that conversation? No. I do think, eventually they'll, when people get over themselves, the people who want to romanticize, the journey. And this is where nostalgia really gets people into trouble because, if you, and I've been guilty of this in the past myself, right? I grew up on C and C++, teaching myself, putting myself through the fucking gauntlet in 1997 and 1998. And anyone who's ever used C and C++, especially like the C and C++, C98 standard and C99 standard with memories, with pointers and everything, and how much memory management was a fucking nightmare. Yeah, there are people, and I used to be that person too. That used to be it's sick thinking that if I went through this pain of this anguish of learning this crap, then you got to do it too. God damn it. we both get up and we both put on our pants the same way. So if I did it, you got to do it too. This annoying nostalgia of, and this old think of, well, if it worked for me, then it's the best way, and you got to do it too. I hate that thinking. That's why I say, man, like when it comes to new technologies, like it's really for the next generation of people who didn't grow up in doing things the hard way. We did things the hard way because there was no easier way of doing it, not because I wanted to do it the hard way. Shit, I wish I had GPT-4 in 1994. Excuse me, 1998. You know what kind of damage I could have done? Oh my god. Scenario: how about controlled emergence? Controlled emergence. I got to come back to you on that term, Shinobi One. I don't know if there's such a thing, which is what I think we are trying to do. I agree with you. I do think OpenAI is trying to do quote unquote controlled emergence. In other words, firing off tons of super rare scenarios a second. We are called the emergent AI if it's not suitable. The problem is, who is the person or people choosing suitability? I agree with you. But you know the answer already. I just found Cursor. It's a VS Code clone with GPT-4 plugin. Need to pay for API key. I think Hermes. I don't remember. I have to go back and look. I think you can use Cursor with open source LLM. I could be wrong. And if I'm wrong, it's a different IDE. I think I've seen it done with GPT-4 and Mistral. I think it's Cursor. Either it's Cursor or there's another one out there. I forgot the name of it. But yeah. All right, continuing on.
To avoid reading a challenging text, or you could use it to work through that text and help you get more out of it.
Tried to read like the prose Edda. It was just impossible to read for me. It was very, very hard. I think that ChatGPT might be able to, parse through it.
So we said, do we know how that ends? Dun dun dun. Yeah, not how it ends. Hey, maybe does all roads lead to Skynet? That's a valid question. Who knows? Have y'all seen the movie? It just came out. What the hell? With Ethan Hawke and Julia Roberts. Leave the World Behind. Very meta. Very, very meta. Maybe all roads do lead to, an all out cyber attack, and we're forced back into living at 1990 or maybe even 1980 actually. Whatever the world is without the internet. So yeah, definitely before 1994. I've heard of it twice. What's it called? Leave the World Behind. Let me double check on that. Yeah, Leave the World Behind with Ethan Hawke and Julia Roberts. Very meta. Very, very meta. It was the executive producers is former president and first lady Barack and Michelle Obama. Perhaps humanity cannot see past a negative outcome because all our efforts are against such. It's possible. It's possible. We know that there's going to be negative outcomes. We know that there's going to be. You can. It always happens. Whether you're talking about the internet with the emergence of the dark and deep web, things happen that you just can't foresee, right? Just variance. Hope is creativity. Did I say that? I hope I didn't. All right, let's get through this video. It's not much more left.
Some of the harder language, simplify things.
You could use it to answer questions for you, or it could inspire you to ask questions you wouldn't have asked before.
if you have a question in class and you're not sure what to do with it, now your first step, instead of going to a teaching assistant or a friend, might be to ask ChatGPT.
You could use it to write or rewrite your words to sound perfect, or you could ask it to critique your writing, and then you decide how you want to make changes.
You know, where are there problems in the logic? Where are there, sentences that aren't clear and so on?
There's a point in which the student has to make that realization and say, okay, this is where I need to work on this, and this is where I need to use ChatGPT, and this is where I need to not use ChatGPT.
But I feel like it's just like asking for trouble, because high schoolers, man.
That's not even. You know what?
Our
You know
schools
what?
and teachers.
I'm gonna let her live because she's a kid, and I'm not gonna go at kids like that. I'm not gonna do it. I said that. Now, as a question, I think it could be hope is creativity. How? Please explain that one to me.
Prompt us to build our own mental map of the world, where we can connect ideas and perspectives and knowledge across space and time. And you want to have that map to help you navigate your future and find your place in the human story. But from now on, there will always be companies offering you turn-by-turn directions instead. And you might think, hey, I'm a kid. That's a lot of self-regulation to ask from someone whose brain is still cooking. I mean, we're still trying to figure out how to manage these things, and adults don't even know what AI is going to look like in 10 years, let alone what jobs will exist. Isn't that kind of a lot to put on us? And my response to that is, yeah, it is.
Walking around, the example that she used was a GPS system, and that if you didn't have GPS, that you would lose the experience the hard way, the path of most resistance of learning about an area, because you're not walking around trying to figure it out. Now, I do agree with her in that that if you don't have GPS, you kind of have to, walk around, get lost. The nooks and the crannies, the back alleyways. How does this city look? You get into the weeds of things. You end up down an alley that you may not want to end up down. But for next time, if you're in that same situation, then you know where not to go, and you just don't have that experience with GPS, or GPS robs you. I would even say save you the time, the mental anguish, the variance that could happen. You get hit by a car, or you get robbed in some back alley or whatever, because you took a wrong turn trying to figure things out, whatever, right? Things happen. um, you're saved from all of those experiences, potential bad and good experiences, or positive and negative experiences, because GPS takes you directly to your destination. And GPS is valuable because, again, as I said before, people do not care about the experience. They're just trying to get to their goddamn destination. They don't care to explore a city, simply because they're trying to. I want to figure things out. No, how do I get to my destination? I got shit to do. I got places to be. I am not trying to learn the city or this section of the city. Hoping that a 1% outcome is potentially possible. That against the odds happens. What is that outcome? That against the odds happen. What is the outcome? I guess it would be some version of reality created in your mind. So, can an AI ever hope? I don't know. I think all these things could be simulated, but then the question becomes, if it's simulated, is it real? Yes, it's real. Especially, again, I don't know, man. Like, I would say yes, but then again, I would again reiterate, it doesn't really matter. Um, these are important questions, um, but I think that as long as people only care about the outcome, which makes sense, you got things to do. We're not widgets sitting around waiting for things to happen to us. We got things we got to do. Um, People won't care. Also 1%. Again, 1% on silicon. That's multiple times a second. You're talking about trillions of calculations over millions, billions, and trillions of of transistors. You're talking about every second that an unlikely outcome happens. Now, according in our time, that 1%, and I'm talking about much less than 1%. I don't who talking about emerges happening at 1% on in terms of computation. I don't know what the world will look like. I don't think I want to live in that world, because then how can you keep up? Humans can't keep up with 1% variance, and not against a computer. No way. So then you come to Chlorine. So if humans can't keep up with 1% variance against a computer, now you have to come up with a computer that I guess regulates of what I don't know. I don't know. That's the whole yeah. Because that 1% could turn into the machine city. It could turn into Skynet. It could turn into the cure for cancer. It could turn into the advent of teleportation or time machines, or a super virus. So who knows? Let's see. But yeah, that is pretty much it. Again, that's Vox. Um, if you want to watch the entire video, and you probably should since I talked through most of this. Every 100 times, I type in 1 + 1, it say 3. Well, Shinobi, if from an algorithm standpoint, if your algorithm works 99% of the time, you have a failing algorithm. Because again, now in terms of human expectation, it may not seem like a big deal. I guess it depends on what it is, of course, right? You don't want to have anything mission critical at 99, even though servers say 99.999% uptime. That 0.001 downtime, it hurts, right? You feel it every single time. But yeah, if your algorithm only works 99% of the time, you have an absolute failure of an algorithm, because like I said, just a number crunching from a number crunching standpoint, it's too much variance, too much variance too often, or too often variance happens. If I got struck by lightning, if there was that is terrible odds. If I let me tell you something, number one. If I stepped out into the rain 100 times, if there was 100 days and I stepped in the rain, or for every 100 times I got struck by lightning, um, I still don't like 1%, right? Why? Because that 1% hurts way too much. Hurts way too much. Just like server downtime, it may to us humans, it may not feel like 99.99999 whatever. It may not feel like that because of that one time, that one day, or those 2 days in the year where we really needed that server and we didn't have access to it, and everybody was going in panic mode. You never forget about those 2 days. You will never forget about it. But the other 362 days, 3 days, the other 363 days, you don't remember those days because you didn't have your server it wasn't down. You didn't get hit by lightning. Skynet was not created during those other 363 days. So yeah, 1% is no good. In the realm of algorithms and computing and time space, big old notation, 1% is no bueno. No. You do any black hat consulting? No. I stopped the black hat stuff when I was a teenager. I used to be heavy in the black hat shit, but no. I need some tips, but I ain't trying to have the YouTube gods watching. What are you trying to no? Yeah, what are you trying to? No. We'll talk about that in the live stream if y'all want to come back for Stable Diffusion. And that's going to be at 10 p.m. Eastern. 1% makes drink a glass of water too dangerous. You goddamn right. I bet you will take that glass. I bet you won't drink that glass of water. There's a 1% chance that the glass of water you're drinking is really rubbing alcohol. It's really there's a really dangerous substance that's clear. I forgot what the name of it is. Oh, I forgot the name of the substance. But yeah, 1% is no bueno. If you can ask the question, you could find the answers. Yeah. 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 All right, guys. Thank y'all so much. We're gonna come back at 10 p.m., which is about 25 minutes from now, and get started on or continue with Stable Diffusion. I'm gonna use my run pod, and yeah, we'll go from there. Thank you all so much, and please hit that like button.